You aced the resume, killed the cover letter, aced the phone screen, and landed the interview. But something still feels off. You feel great about the job, but you still have thoughts about whether the company is a good fit for you. Well, sometimes it's not the job that's the problem, it's the employer. And if you take your career seriously, knowing how to spot those bad employers is gonna pay dividends throughout the rest of your career. Hi there, I'm Kim, and in today's video, I will share some job interview red flags which are signs of a bad employer. If you are seeing any of these red flags, it's time to move on to the next opportunity. Don't let a bad employer ruin your career. So let's get started. Red flag number 1. Asking off-limits questions. There are certain questions that are completely off-limits in an interview setting. Anything related to race, gender, sex, creed, color, any of that stuff. So if an employer asks you during an interview, "Are you planning to start a family?" Actually, that's an unfair question. It doesn't change anything about how you do your job. What they're really trying to figure out is if they'll have to pay for maternity or paternity leave. They may also think that if you leave for maternity or paternity leave, you won't be as committed to the job in the long run. So it's mostly just assumptions. Compensation is another question that often comes up in interviews, but in many states, it's against the law, specifically how much you were paid last. You see, a lot of states now have laws that say you can't ask that question in an interview. The reason is that you should be paid what the job is worth and what value you bring to the table, not what you were paid by your last employer. If you are stuck in a low-paying job through no fault of your own, that shouldn't be something that follows you around for the rest of your career. Even though most hiring managers haven't had much interview training, that doesn't mean they can ask inappropriate questions. Even if they didn't know it was wrong, they shouldn't have done it. So, if an employer asks you any of these inappropriate questions, that's a big warning sign. Red flag number 2. The job doesn't match the description. So maybe you sent in an application for a job because you read the job description and thought it sounded like a great match. Then, when you get to the actual interview and start talking to the hiring manager, the job seems to be something completely different. Or, at the start of that role, they might think you'll be doing something that has nothing to do with the job title. They might then tell you that if you work here for 6 or 9 months, you'll be moved into the job you actually applied for. Any of these things is a big warning sign. There isn't much chance that you'll get the job you were looking for because low-quality employers often use a bait and switch to get people in the door. And if there's a clear difference between what the hiring manager wants and what the job ads say, you'll have a lot more problems if you take that job. Bad employers tend to hide or sugarcoat the bad parts of the job, but either way, it's a bad job that you don't want. Red flag number 3. Expectations are not aligned with compensation. This one happens a lot. When you read the job description, it seems like they want someone with a lot more experience or responsibility than they are willing to pay for. And it often comes with unrealistic ideas about what can be done. In order to do your job well, your work-life balance is going to be thrown out of whack. Let's say you're going for an interview for a manager-level job. You have done that job before in a small department of a big company. They want you to run a department that is twice as big and has even more responsibility. But when it comes to your pay, they are actually trying to pay you $30,000 less than what you should be making. As you can see, bad employers are bad for a reason. They aren't willing to pay a fair market wage. They often pay much less than the work they expect from you. A lot of the time, they'll put a carrot right in front of you that you'll never be able to reach. You might be able to earn trips to faraway places, a company car, or a big bonus if you reach certain goals. But they, like you, both know that it's not likely to ever happen. Or, if it's true, only a small number of people are able to do it. And what comes with it is a lot of micromanagement, bad communication at work, and a lot of stress. Red flag number 4. High turnover rates. If you ask a simple question, why is this job open in the first place? You can usually find out why good employees leave so often. If they don't have a good reason or admit that the people who worked there before them were fired or quit on their own, they have to explain why. You can also cross-reference with Glassdoor, which is a great resource. Now keep in mind that people tend to write reviews on Glassdoor when they're angry about something, so you should take it with a grain of salt. But what you're really looking for is something that all of the reviews of Glassdoor have in common. People always say that you're micromanaged and that you never get bonuses. Chances are not a cultural thing. and you need to make sure you ask the right questions in the interview. And if a company is known for letting people go or firing them without warning, that's something else to think about. Lastly, it's something to look into if people leave the company on their own because they say the work environment is bad or the pay isn't good enough. So, read between the lines, pay attention to what's written on the glass door, and ask the right questions during the interview to try to avoid a bad employer. Red flag number 5. The company has funding issues. One thing you can think about is how long the company has been in business. There could be good reasons why a business hasn't been around for a very long time. Maybe it's a new tech company with an interesting new product. Even trustworthy startups need the right amount of money to pay their workers what they're worth. If they say, "Hey, we just can't pay you more than this because we don't have enough money," that's a red flag. Everything else will be paid for out of their own pockets, and their chances of being successful as a business are very low. Also, if the business seems to have appeared out of nowhere, that's something else to look into. What does their website look like? Can you find any press releases? Is it full of stock photos of people talking in a bland way? Does it have a real place of business? Does it have more than one place you can actually go to? If it's near you, you might even want to drive by to make sure there are people working there. Does it look like they have the right tools to go after the business markets they're going after? Because if they want you to bring your own tools to the job, that's a big warning sign. Companies that make solar panels will pay for your training, expenses, equipment, transportation, and software. Red flag number 6. The company has abnormally high job response rates. Now, I can hear a bunch of you saying, "Hey Kim, that's great. They talked to a lot of their candidates. Isn't that a good thing?" But this is actually another red flag. Most big companies, especially big companies with a good reputation, have a very selective review process. They might call no more than 5% of the people who apply for the jobs. So if you find a company that responds to 75% or more of the applicants, you might wonder why. Most of the time, those companies have to play a numbers game because they know their chances aren't that good. We all know that if you just throw something at the wall when hiring, you'll end up with desperate people who won't stick around. Red flag number 7. Being asked to do free work. Doing work for free is actually against the law in most countries or states. You have to be paid a fair market wage for what you do. So if your boss asks you to put together a presentation or solve a business case for them, you should ask, how will this help your business? Now, it's one thing if it's a generic case study where they just want to see how you handle high-pressure situations. But if they give you real work that they need done for their business, that's a different story. And that's a big warning sign, because some shady companies have been known to put people through interviews and then ask them to write a case study about a business situation they're going through. After the interview, you'll be sent on your way, but you should keep the work you did. That is why you should really ask that question unless you're asked to prepare something that doesn't help the company. Why do you want this of me? And I know some people who have gone through real processes. They actually put together a business case study to show how they would solve a generic business problem. This was a good exercise during the interview process. But if you're asked to do something like this, and you're also seeing other warning signs, you should be careful. So those are 7 red flags you should be aware in order not to land a bad employer. If you take your future career seriously, then avoid employers that will give you years of grief and ruin your future livelihood. I know that as a job seeker, it's easy to get into a state of desperation and take any job that comes along. But there are some positions that you should stay away from. Just because someone offers you a paycheck doesn't mean they're giving you a good offer. Of course, what you do with that paycheck is also an important factor for your future. Definitely check out this video where I talk exactly about what to do when you get paid. See you there!